You know, in English, some of the most powerful words are also the smallest. We're about to uncover the secret power of these tiny words. They're really the unsung heroes that give our sentences all their flavor, their depth, and their meaning.
So, to get us started, I want you to meet Jenny. She's going to be our guide through this whole explainer.
And what's Jenny's task? It's super simple. She has a garage to paint. The main action here, the main verb, is paint. Simple enough, right? Well, let's see what happens when we just sprinkle in a few extra little words.
Okay, so what if we say Jenny might paint the garage? All of a sudden, it's not so certain anymore, is it? There's this layer of possibility. Maybe she will, maybe she won't.
Or how about this one? Jenny ought to paint the garage. Whoa, now that feels totally different. It sounds like a duty, right? An obligation. The whole feeling just shifted again. And here, Jenny will be painting the garage. This one puts the action squarely in the future, and it even suggests it's going to be an ongoing thing. But notice, the main action, painting, that part never changed at all.
So that's the big puzzle we're looking at. We've got the same person, Jenny, doing the same thing, painting a garage. But every single one of those sentences means something completely different. So, what's the secret ingredient here?
And the answer is auxiliary verbs. The best way to think of them is as helping verbs. They're like a support crew that teams up with the main verb, in our case paint, to totally transform its meaning in all these cool and powerful ways.
All right, so here's our game plan for digging into this. First, we'll quickly revisit that idea of one action having tons of different meanings. Then we'll get into the verbs that change meaning versus the ones that change the whole sentence structure. And finally, we'll see how these helpers can all work together in what's called a verb chain. So let's dive into that first idea. We just saw with Jenny how these tiny little words, might, ought to, will be, they completely changed the story of her simple weekend task. You know, a really great way to picture this is to think of the main verb, paint, as the hero of the sentence. It's doing all the heavy lifting. The auxiliary verbs, then, are its powerful sidekicks. They show up and give the hero special powers, like time travel, or expressing doubt, or creating a sense of duty. So how do these sidekicks actually work? Well, we can pretty much split them into two main groups, based on what kind of power they're bringing to the table.
So on the one hand, you've got temporal auxiliaries. Their whole job is about time. Is painting tells us it's happening right now. Has painted tells us it's already done, it's in the past. Then, on the other hand, you have modal auxiliaries. And these are the ones that really change the flavor of the sentence. Can paint is all about her ability, while should paint gives advice or talks about an obligation. See the difference? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Some of these helpers don't just tweak the meaning, they can actually flip the entire structure of a sentence right on its head. And this is all about the active versus the passive voice. Look at the active sentence. Jenny painted the garage. Pretty straightforward. Our hero, Jenny, is front and center. But if we bring in that little helper verb was, we get the passive voice. The garage was painted. And just like that, the spotlight moves. The garage becomes the star of the show. The focus shifts from the person doing the action to the thing receiving it. And that brings us to maybe the hardest working, most common helper in the entire English language, the tiny but mighty little word, do. It's a special type of auxiliary, and it has some really important specific jobs. It pretty much has three main gigs. First, it's how we ask questions, like, do you paint? We can't really say, paint you, right? Second, it's absolutely essential for making negative statements. Jenny did not paint. And third, it's our go-to for adding emphasis. You know, if someone doesn't believe you, you can say, no, really, I did paint it. It's just an amazing, versatile little word. Okay, so here's the final piece of the puzzle, and it's where things get really cool. These helpers don't have to work alone. They can actually team up and stack their powers to create even more detailed and complex meanings. Just take a look at this sentence. She could have started earlier. It rolls off the tongue, sounds totally normal. But if you stop and look closely, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening there before we even get to the main action. And this shows us the verb chain perfectly. The number one rule is that the main verb our hero started always, always comes last. Before it, we've built this chain of helpers.
First, we have the modal, could, which adds that layer of possibility. Then we have the temporal, have, which puts it in the past. Together, they create this really specific, powerful chain of meaning. Now look, if all these different helpers and verb chains and modals are making your head spin a little, don't worry. The source material gives some great advice here. Fret not. Seriously, like anything else, just getting used to spotting and using these powerful little verbs, it just takes a bit of practice. So let's wrap this all up with one last question for you. Think back over what we just covered. How many different kinds of helping verbs did you just learn about? From the ones that play with time to the ones that change the whole meaning, they really are the secret engine that makes our language go.